It's time for the Volquest podcast, where we dissect the biggest news items of the week.
Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by our good friends at Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies for you. 4 locations to serve you, 3 in Sevier County, 1 in Knoxville. And of course, you can shop online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. That Knoxville location on Kingston Pike, just across from Trader Joe's, or you can find their stores in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along on this Tuesday morning. And Rob, we'll start with you. This Tennessee basketball team, man, if they could play at Thompson Bowling Arena, they might be the national champs by the time this thing is over. I'm not saying they can't make a run, but this is one really good basketball team in general. But they've been really good at home. They get the 67-62 win over Auburn. You've been in that arena for a lot of big games, a lot of games that Auburn's coach, Bruce Pearl, coached for Tennessee. A lot of big moment games there against the Billy Donovan, Florida teams and those things. Where do you put Saturday's atmosphere in that scope with those big games you've covered over the last 20 years?
I mean, it was as good as any, Hubbard. I mean, you know how it is. I mean, they kind of run together after a time. I have a hard time. I mean, you mentioned a couple of those Billy Donovan teams back in the day, when Bruce was here. I can vividly remember those being some special nights, some special atmospheres. Pick one against Kentucky. I mean, there have been some big time ones in there, but again, I would just say I've not seen it any better. And I tell you, man, what I will say, I don't know if I've seen it. I don't know if I've seen it as the frenzy as sustained as it was in the second half for about 10 or 12 minutes, where it was a zoo from the time Tennessee, they're down 39-28 when they throw a 10-0 run out there to and tie the game up, when Ziegler hits the 3-pointer to tie it up, Huntley Hatfield's follow-up dunk, and on the defensive end, just Tennessee gets a shot clock violation or a couple of turnovers. Just that stretch when Auburn didn't score, they didn't hit a field. They scored, hit a couple of foul shots, but they didn't make a shot for the field. And I think like 8 minutes and 40 seconds. That was probably the loudest sustained, exuberance noise level that I've seen in there. And maybe I'm forgetting something. Maybe there was something that's good, but I don't think there was anything better.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like on TV it was really good. I know that Texas game. I mean, there's been a lot of big moments that have happened in there. It certainly seems like it's pretty well organized. It's pretty well put together from a presentation, and there's a lot to cheer for with the way this basketball team is playing right now. That game was interesting. You knew Tennessee would have one of those runs or one of those dry spells where they didn't score. They certainly did that in the first half, got themselves in a bind. But this stat line is, and I want to know how this stat line came about, Rob. The bigs for Tennessee, 17 points, 29 rebounds, 16 of those offensive, 3 blocks, 2 steals, 5 turnovers. How in the world did Tennessee's post play, when you talk about Brandon, you're talking about Jonas, you're talking about Fulkerson, you're talking about Euros, how did those 4 contribute like that against that Auburn front line?
I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, I'm just, not that Tennessee won the game. I predicted Tennessee to win the game.
Right.
I didn't think Tennessee was going to out-rebound Auburn by 20 plus. I mean, I thought Tennessee would figure out a way to win in spite of its rebounding, not because of it. And to do what they did. I mean, you just mentioned all those guys. I mean, they all just about played their best games of the year in terms of rebounding, and Huntley Hatfield certainly did. I mean, him and Fulke, BHH had 8 rebounds, 5 of them offensive. Fulkerson had 9 rebounds. That's the high in SEC play for both those kids. It happened in the same game against the best rebounding team in the league. I mean, Auburn came in at +6 rebounding margin, and nobody else was really close. Eurosh had 7 rebounds. That's the most he's had in 3 weeks. Adu had 5. Doesn't look like much. He played 8 minutes. 5 rebounds in 8 minutes. Not bad.
No, not bad. Well, the other thing that stands out to me too, and also I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but the other thing that stands out to me, Rob, is when I look at the roster rundown and the participants, and you look at the box score, there were only 2 or 3 players on the team that played who did not have a rebound, and those guys played just a couple of handful of minutes. When you talk about Meshack and you talk about Victor Bailey, I mean, everybody on the team rebounded on Saturday. Of course, that's how you out rebound somebody by that kind of margin.
And Josiah is the best rebounder on the team when you just go by numbers. He had 9 rebounds, just missed a double-double. And that's how Tennessee, this was an extreme example. I mean, getting 50-plus rebounds in a game, but that's how Tennessee has to do it. I mean, your best rebounder all season long has been a 6'6" guard. I mean,
it's as simple as this. To quote the great Chet Steadman from Rookie of the Year, you got to find it down in your have to. And they had to find it down in their have to. They have to have rebounded well to win this ball game because they shot it like crap.
They did 33%. But I mean, it's boring. And Rick Barnes isn't the only guy to say it, but an old basketball coach will tell you, if you play defense, if you rebound the basketball and you hit your foul shots, you're going to win a lot of basketball games. And that's what Tennessee did on Saturday. They held Auburn to 34% shooting, crushed them on the boards, and Tennessee went 21-27 at the foul line.
Rob, I can always count on you for movie references. I'm disappointed there was not a rebuttal. I knew Hubs wouldn't know what the hell Chet Steadman, who the hell Chet Steadman is.
I know that. That's the Floater movie, right? Where the kid does the Pepsi commercial and he throws it from center field and hits home plate. I know
AP,
that movie.
AP, that's a little off my movie radar. You're gonna have to get a.
Rob's not dialing into the Disney flicks these days.
You have to get a little more highbrow than that.
You gotta help him out with that deal.
Quentin Tarantino, anything in the Guy Ritchie genre, we can butt heads on.
So 67-62 is the final. Tennessee beats Auburn. Tennessee turns around, plays tonight, Rob, against Georgia. That's a Georgia team.
Bad.
Hey. You can't they've gotten beat by at least 7 points in every game but 3 in SEC play. Those 3, though, 2-point loss to Alabama, pretty decent team, 2-point loss to Auburn. So, again, if Tennessee plays the way they're supposed to play, they'll win this game going away. But you can't let them hang around. They're not bad. I mean, I know their record says they're bad, but they're capable if you let them hang around.
I mean, those 3 things happened, AP, those 3 games. When I was starting to crunch some numbers on Monday afternoon, and Georgia is – and I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's like 360-something Division I teams right now in basketball. Georgia ranks in the 300s in like defense, turnovers, rebounding. It's a disaster.
You should step on their neck and win this game by 20.
I'll be surprised.
Right?
I don't know if they win by 20, but I'll be surprised if it's ever in doubt. And again, AP, the games you referenced, Auburn was pretty lucky to get out of there with a win. Alabama lost at Georgia, so they are capable of throwing a scare into you. But man, I just feel like this is a team playing out the string, and Tennessee has not really been a team that has played down to the competition. I mean, they've lost some games on the road, but they have all been to ranked opponents at the time.
They have 0 bad losses.
Yep, they have 0 bad losses at this point. Rob, that is that just simply because of their defense? Is that how you avoid a bad loss? Is because you consistently play good defense night in and night out?
But I think effort in general. I mean, I think they don't take teams lightly. I think the coaches do a good job, with that of making sure that the success doesn't linger. I know, Rick wasn't, pouring cold water on him Saturday night, but pretty quickly after the game, I know he told him to enjoy it, have a good time, but hey, we have to get back here and go back to work tomorrow. And it's just hard to win on the road. I mean, I say that all the time. Saturday afternoon in college basketball proved that out beyond a shadow of a doubt. When the top 6 teams in the country lost, 2 of them lost to unranked teams. Purdue lost to Michigan State. Who was the other one that lost?
Gonzaga, right?
No, St. Mary's was ranked. I guess I guess Purdue was the only one that lost to an unranked team, unless I'm misremembering.
And of course, the top 4 teams in the conference are 63-1. The only loss being the first game in SEC play is Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
and I know, to Arkansas in 1.
And I get the question. You guys see it sometimes. Why can't Tennessee win on the road? Why can't Tennessee win on the road? Well, I mean, almost nobody can win on the road against a good team.
Against good teams, yes.
All 4 of the top 4 teams in the SEC, whenever Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee have gone on the road to one of the other 4, they've all lost. Nobody's won. Auburn and Kentucky both lost at Arkansas. Tennessee lost at Kentucky and Arkansas. And I didn't realize this until today. What a break Arkansas catches. Among those top 4 teams, the only road trip they make is coming up this weekend. They didn't go to Auburn. They didn't go to Kentucky.
Yeah, good break for them in scheduling. We'll see how they handle Tennessee this weekend. But obviously, Tennessee's got to take care of business first.
Hubbard, before we move on.
No, I'm not done with basketball, but go ahead.
One Hubbard stat. You just mentioned their defense, and I meant to reference this a minute ago. 7 games in a row, they've held the opponent to 65 points or less. That's pretty stout.
That's tournament brand basketball. And I'm not saying that means you're going to run 3 weekends in the NCAA tournament. Don't get me wrong. But that's how you win tournament games, right? I mean, that's the formula. Is you got to lock down and play defense, because as you said back in December, defense travels. You can carry your defense with you. You're going to have nights where you don't shoot it well. If you're relying on your offense to outscore everybody, it's going to be hard to do, right?
And those 7 games, they include the other 3 best teams in the SEC. They lost at Arkansas, holding to 58.
Yeah, and a crazy game there.
I'm interested to see how they do when we get to tournament time on a neutral site, because the neutral site games they played, they were a way different team back then because the rotation was different, how they played Ziegler, these young posts. Obviously they had Camelot back then versus now. I'm interested when they get to a neutral site and not a true road game. How does their defense and then kind of hot, cold shooting translate to neutral site floors and stadiums, arenas?
My question, Rob, I'm with you, AP, because you look at their neutral site floor games. The Texas Tech game was really close, right?
And a different team now.
And they're a totally different team. I know they got handled by Villanova, but Rob, you would agree that this is not, it's apples to oranges for where this team is right now compared to where they were in December.
Yeah, I think so. But and you would hope that would be the case. I think Rick has figured out some things with the rotation. Certainly, I don't want to say that they're better for being without Olivier, but the ceiling that Brandon and Jonas have is higher than Olivier. But I don't think that they're better, more productive guys than he is right now, night in, night out. But I think Kenny Chandler is far, far better than he was back in December. Just so much more in control. And I'm like a lot of people thought that Tennessee would have to have a productive John Fulkerson, like a double-digit scorer John Fulkerson, if they were going to make any noise in March. I don't think that anymore.
But they've got to have a productive rebounding John Fulkerson.
Yes, or just somebody in there. With those 4 bigs.
They brother-in-law it extremely well. They do one game, Fulkerson one game, Urosh comes out of nowhere for a few minutes. Huntley Hatfield this past game against Auburn. They are mixing and matching and not having nights hubs, in my opinion, where nobody shows up in the post.
Other than Arkansas. They were a no-show at Arkansas in the post. But this past week they were certainly not a no-show. And leading that way in my when you look at the stats, was Brandon Huntley Hatfield. And the question I have, Rob, is was this week truly the turn the corner week, or was this week just he played well and you're not sure what you're going to get tonight at Georgia? Where do you think he is in the progression of being that reliable guy who suddenly now goes from playing essentially no minutes in the second half because they don't trust him to doing what he did Saturday against Auburn, where he's on the floor for the core of the second half because they did trust him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see from him at Auburn tonight. I really don't. But I think he had to leave that building on Saturday, feeling like he had taken a step. Now, what that means for him going forward, I don't know. But I have to feel like he left that, feeling like, man, I can really help my team win. This is what I've got to do. And you just mentioned it. There's no bigger reinforcement than that. Than he played 13 minutes in the second half. There's been plenty of games in the SEC where he didn't play 13 minutes, period. And I think that vote of confidence from his coach meant something to him. And he legit. At the end of the day, when you're talking about potential ability, he's the most talented kid on this team. Kennedy's great right now. Other guys are more productive, but in 3 or 4 years from now, I'll be shocked if Brandon's not the best basketball player that's on this roster. And he's a guy that, I think he could give you 10 points and 8 rebounds in a high level March game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if that same game in the second, on Sunday, the NCAA tournament, if he gave you no points and 1 rebound.
I think he definitely takes. I think he definitely takes. A huge amount of confidence from Saturday. But I'm with Rob. I think that he's going to be up and down. I think it's easy to get motivated to come and bring your best in practice and kind of take that step when you look up and Jonas Adu, who hadn't played hardly at all season, is all of a sudden starting to make more plays than you are. And you've had actual functional minutes throughout most of the year. Then Saturday, you're tasked with guarding Jabari Smith. You don't want to just get, clowned on. So, I mean, I think he was motivated as he should have been.
Well,
and what's it like when he goes against somebody that's not a projected top 5 pick? And the motivation, where does the have to come from then?
Yeah, and this doesn't always translate, but I will say this: Monday, Brandon had a really good practice. There are some days when you be in there and you don't even know if he's in the gym. And Monday, he was active. He made some big time plays. Had a couple of big dunks in traffic. Was very aggressive shooting the basketball. Now, also, John Fulkerson was limited. Didn't do a lot. Maybe didn't do anything 5-on-5 when they were out there actually banging bodies. So he certainly had more opportunities. But I will say, Monday he looked like a guy who was taking some confidence from what he did on Saturday.
Is this just a case where it was just unrealistic expectations because he's got the beautiful body that everybody talks about. He's got the frame, but from a mental standpoint, from a basketball development standpoint, Rob, he was just in a case for so many years where he just overpowered people and created unrealistic expectations for what he could do as a freshman right out of the gate? Or is this a case where he had to be kind of broken down and built back up by this coaching staff in terms of their development of him? I guess everybody wants to know sort of why now? Why not December?
Yeah.
Why not 1st of January?
I just Hubbard, and I don't say this is a negative. I mean, I think there's immaturity, and I don't mean immaturity in the sense of like goofing off and not willing to work hard. I just think he had no clue about how hard you had to work, about how the effort, the intensity you had to play with to really be a guy who played 20 productive minutes in the SEC. I mean, I don't think he had any inkling. And when he got to campus last June, he was still 17 years old. He didn't turn 18 until August. That's a lot of people say, oh, he's just back in his class. He's back in his class. Not really. I mean, if I had a kid who was going to turn 18 when he was a senior, that kid would have started kindergarten a year later. Would you want your kid to be 16 years old, getting his driver's license, start of his junior year? I don't, to me, I just say he had no concept of what it was like, what it was going to take in terms of effort. And I don't mean he's lazy. I don't think many 18-year-olds.
You don't know what you don't know, Rob.
Yeah, you just don't. You don't know. Has never worked as hard, and I think it took him a while just to really catch up and see. And I'm not sure he's there yet, but I think he's getting there.
Right. Well, we'll see. I mean, the first test comes tonight is can he handle a little success? Because here's a guy who had a big game on Saturday and people are talking about him. He's signing autographs at an event Sunday evening for a little while. And now he's got to go back and get himself in a scouting report, get ready to play on Monday and go play Tuesday night at Georgia. So we'll see how he handles that kind of maturity, making another road trip with some newfound expectations for him. Rob, if people would have gone to Vegas with you, I think they'd have made some money on this basketball team the last couple of weeks. You've had it dialed and pegged pretty good on how the weeks
maybe
have
just
gone.
The last couple of weeks, ever we'd had gone it early and come right back.
but how do you feel about this team this week? I know you like their chances at Georgia, but we'll talk about Arkansas some on the Mailbag podcast. But given the way they played at home, would you be surprised if Tennessee doesn't win out?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised. And I mean, I don't think Auburn's going to lose at Mississippi State on Wednesday night, but that wouldn't be like
Mississippi State can't score.
That wouldn't be the biggest upset ever. I mean, as AP just pointed out, Auburn almost lost at Georgia. They almost, they had their hands full at Missouri. So I mean, this is a team they've struggled on the road, and not just against Arkansas and Tennessee, but they've struggled to get it done against some of the middle of the pack or lower teams in the SEC. Again, I don't think Auburn's going to lose that game, but if they did, opens up a lot of crazy possibilities. Tennessee would be in a tie. Probably then Kentucky and Auburn could all claim an SEC championship, but Tennessee would get the 1 seed in Tampa.
Well, I know one thing. Auburn might want to be careful about going to the hump and stomping up mid-floor, because nobody goes in the hump and stomps them mid-floors and gets away. It's crazy. Auburn's done that twice on the road the last couple of weeks, and it's not set well. It didn't set well with Arkansas. Tennessee didn't make a big deal out of it afterwards, but it didn't set well with Tennessee with what happened on Saturday as well. So we'll have full coverage of Tennessee and Georgia tonight. Obviously, Tennessee and Arkansas coming up on Saturday as this basketball team looks to close out the regular season. Still plenty of things played for in front of them. 3 seed, Rob, you think they're pretty locked in right now as a 3 seed?
I think they're locked in unless, if they could win in Tampa, I think they're really in the conversation for a 2 seed, because more than likely, if you win in Tampa, you beat Kentucky and Auburn.
Yeah.
One of them on Saturday, one of them on Sunday.
Then then wouldn't you be virtually a lock for a 2 seed at that point?
I would think so, but I would have to, does Duke fall? Does, who falls? Who do you pass? If you might pass Kentucky, who's a 2 seed right now, maybe, it'd give you'd be 2-1 against them on the season. I think Duke would have to take a bad loss.
But where's Auburn on the line?
Auburn's a 1 seed today.
Yeah. So if you're 2-0 against Auburn, they're not going to fall to a 3 probably, but
I wouldn't think.
You never know.
Maybe they're both 2 seeds. I guess I just think that's a lot of ifs, Upper.
Right.
But if you pick up, if you have 4 wins over or 5 wins over Kentucky, Arkansas.
Does Kentucky play this week?
They play at Florida on Saturday, and I'm not sure who the midweek game is. But
that's the game. That's the Florida's got to find. If Florida finds a way to win that game, then if Tennessee wins out, it should be Tennessee and Arkansas on one side of the bracket, Kentucky and Auburn on the other, which would be a huge win for the Vols.
Yeah,
that was
Kentucky, because Kentucky and Arkansas has the head-to-head over Kentucky.
Yeah,
so having won both games.
We'll see how that plays out over the course of the rest of this week. Obviously, for Tennessee first, it's take care of business tonight at Stedman Coliseum against the struggling Georgia Bulldogs.
Man, here's I didn't realize this. Tennessee saw 6 straight there. 6 straight. I had no idea until looking at the
and they've lost to some bad Georgia teams down there.
With some good Tennessee teams.
Yep. They've gone down there with some good Tennessee teams and lost to some bad Georgia teams, which goes back to what AP you were saying right off the top. Don't just completely sleep, because Tennessee's had a hard time for whatever reason in that building, and Georgia has found a way to muster up against some quality competition. So Tennessee better bring their defense and better bring their work hat on Tuesday night. Or later tonight, I should say, against the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, coming up on Saturday, I'm not going to talk about the Tennessee baseball teams. That was like fraternity club softball. That was like the tournament out in Blount County, the slow pitch softball tournament where there's 9,000 home runs. I mean, I don't know how Iona's fielding a team. I don't want to take anything away from Tony Vitello's club, but the most work Tony Vitello did this weekend was sitting on Millionaires Row and a Ziegler shirt, cheering and ripping on officials in a basketball game, Rob. They 60-something runs that they scored.
They scored 68. They scored more runs this weekend than Tennessee scored points against Auburn.
It's crazy. Bad baseball team in Iona coming to town. So we got plenty to get to there. And obviously coming up on Saturday, Tennessee.
Big junior day, Hubs. Huge junior day.
Huge junior day. With a lot of people in. Quickly, Rob or Austin, as you look at this junior day, you got Nico in town for 2 or 3 days. That's big. And then you've got a handful of guys, a lot of guys from around the South. Give me 3 or 4 big names that have caught your early eye who are supposed to be here. We know it's subject to change.
Well, Nico will get here Thursday evening. So he'll have dinner in Knoxville Thursday, and he don't leave till Monday. He's here several stretch of days. Tennessee's going to have a real shot there. I know Steve Wilfong put a crystal ball in. Probably nobody I respect more in this business than him. I think he does a phenomenal job. But he also had Ty Simpson pegged to go to Clemson, until 24 hours out and then switched. So, it's not like he doesn't, miss. when I look at this, I think, if you're just looking at this from a pragmatic standpoint, like what makes the most sense? There's a huge Polynesian culture at Oregon, has been for a long time. West Coast kid's going to stay on the West Coast. His cousin's Tosh Lupoi. So like everything checks Oregon. But again, I don't think no decision has been made. Talking to some people on Monday, it sure feels like Tennessee's going to have every bit of a shot coming in this weekend to kind of wow him and see what happens. I know he's always wanted to go to the SEC. Oregon did make a run. We'll see if they're able to hold off teams from the SEC. But 3 days is a long time here in Knoxville for them to kind of get a real feel, and for Tennessee to get a real feel for the family. The whole family's coming, so it should be a big deal. Outside of that, I look at guys that just make sense. Christian Conyers, Justin Brown, like those guys are guys that Tennessee has a really pretty good solid shot at. So like to me, this is a big weekend for those kids. There are some really nice players coming in like Jamal Jarrett, offensive lineman, highly ranked, highly regarded, offered by everybody. But I'm looking at guys that Tennessee has a real shot to get sometime this spring or summer. And I look at Justin Brown, Christian Conyers are two guys. What does Tennessee think of Marquez Taylor? He's kind of one of those kind of iffy guys, for me, as far as like, what is he? Tennessee's trying to figure that out. Is he an offensive guy? Is he a defensive guy? Nathan Robinson, in-state kid, you can't teach that kind of size. So, when I look at this weekend, there are guys from out of state that are really impressive, but I'm talking about who does Tennessee have a realistic shot at right now? Like, I'm not saying they can't land some of these out-of-state kids, because they can, but like right now, I think Tennessee's in the top 1 or 2 for Brown, Conyers, and those type of kids we just talked about.
When you look at Brown, how important is it that Tennessee, and will they, you think, have a receivers coach in place by the time Saturday gets here? Is that realistic or no?
It is, and I talked to people over there today who told me the plan is to have someone on scene for Junior Day on Saturday. So I think that's a big deal to get that one across the finish line. I think it's big because otherwise, like, what's Justin Brown coming in for? I mean, he can come in and hang out with Golich and Hype all he wants, but he ain't gonna be able to talk to the guy that's physically going to coach him and teach him how to run a curl or deep post or whatever. So, for my liking, I think that they'll get that done, sometime. And we've talked about the names on the board. I mean, David Johnson is a guy that makes the most sense from a culture standpoint. Does Tennessee take a swing with somebody else? I'm told there are at least a couple more names Tennessee would like to talk to, either that happened on Monday and or happening on Tuesday. And we'll see, if those names come out at any point in the next little bit. And then, you look at the kid or the guy that's at Georgia Tech, he's fairly well regarded. And then, of course, Grant Hurd in Indiana.
Yep. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out here over the course of the next few hours and the next couple of days to see if Tennessee can land themselves a receivers coach. And then obviously we'll have full coverage of Tennessee's Junior Day coming up on Saturday. We'll talk much more about that in the Mailbag podcast. We'll have much more as names get finalized late in the week. So we'll have more on that in the War Room. We'll have coverage of Tennessee baseball midweek game coming up this week. And then obviously they go to Texas, into Houston to take on Baylor in Texas and some quality competition down there. We'll have full coverage of that, full coverage of basketball, football, recruiting, plenty of conversation going on at Volquest.com. That's going to do it for this Tuesday edition of the Volquest.com podcast presented by our good friends at Smoky Mountain Organics. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest podcast every week here on Volquest.